Josh Allen faces an uphill climb to repeat as NFL MVP. I'll explain why today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of the Herd Mentality Substack, co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, co-host of the NFL First Read Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Well, folks, welcome in. Today on the podcast, we are going to explore all of the different NFL awards and consider what the chances are that a Buffalo Bills player or coach claims the hardware. And I can already hear you in the YouTube comments saying, the only trophy I care about is the Lombardi Trophy. Yeah, me too, right? We could still have fun conversations about the possibility of the Bills claiming other hardware this year. So we'll work through it. We'll talk NFL MVP, Coach of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, and Protector of the Year, the new award that was spearheaded by Dion Dawkins to bring that to fruition. We'll talk about where the Bills fall in that conversation as well. But let's start with NFL MVP and Josh Allen's likelihood of repeating as the NFL MVP. And so, of course, I want to give you the history of the Bills claiming these awards. We'll talk about, for each award, who the top five options right now in terms of best odds according to FanDuel are, and then talk about why it could happen and why I'm skeptical that it will happen. So NFL MVP most recently happened, well, last year, Josh Allen, your 2024 NFL MVP. Thurman Thomas got it in 1991, O.J. Simpson in 1973. That's it. Those are the only three instances of the Bills having the NFL MVP. Now, last year at this time, Josh Allen was number 2 at plus 800 in terms of odds to be the NFL MVP. This year, he slots at number 3 at plus 600 entering the season. Lamar Jackson, number 1 at plus 500. Then you have, well, Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Joe Burrow at plus 600. So I guess a three-way tie for number 2. Jaden Daniels is number 5 at plus 850. And then you have Justin Herbert and Jalen Hurts at plus 2,000. So the most likely NFL MVPs this year are Jackson, Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Daniels, and then there's a big gap. So why could it happen? Well, Josh Allen, special player who's always going to be in this conversation. He really has for the last 5 years. He was second in voting in 2020, fourth in 2022, fifth in 2023, and he won it in 2024. So he's in this conversation on a yearly basis. And I think Josh Allen is primed to have some impressive production. The thing about him winning the NFL MVP in 2024 is that it really wasn't about the stats. That wasn't a year in terms of volume stats that point to Josh Allen as the most productive or prolific player in the NFL. But I do love that the panel who votes on it understood that he was clearly the most valuable player and that it transcended any statistical number that you were going to put up on a screen. And with that in mind, as we talk about why it could happen in 2025, it's the year-over-year continuity. This is no longer a season where we're talking about vacated targets and elevated roles and new players, right? Khalil Shakir, the only receiver that had played with Josh Allen prior to the season. You're working in a lot of new stuff, whether it's Joe Brady's first year as the play caller in the permanent capacity. You had 2 new starters on your offensive line. You're working in a new number 2 running back. You're working in 4 new receivers, right? That's not happening again, which I think will allow the Bills to hit the ground running offensively in ways that they didn't last year. If you remember, the Bills through the first several weeks of the season really struggled with third down offense. And we were going through and talking about, well, where's all this missing production? Well, they're running like 11 less plays per game because they're not converting third downs at the clip that they used to. And I don't think we'll have those conversations again this year. Now, by the end of the year, that normalized, and so things really accelerated. But that year-over-year continuity from a coaching perspective, from a talent around Josh Allen perspective, I think will lead to better stats for Josh Allen. I also think when you combine continuity with improvements, you can get excited about where Josh Allen's numbers will fall in 2025. You're really adding Josh Palmer and Elijah Moore to your receiving core. That's about it in terms of what's new for this offense. And I like those skill sets. Those are players stylistically that Josh Allen typically has success with. Guys that are route runners, that are separators. That's where Josh Allen has found his most success, throwing the football to those types of players. And so it's the continuity that is very different when you compare entering 2025 versus 2024. But the tweaks that you did make are the types of players that there's history of Josh Allen being successful throwing the football too. Not to mention, hey, there's meat on the bone for Keon Coleman. There's meat on the bone for Dalton Kincaid to take a step. Khalil Shakir even more comfortable in his role. So I get excited about where these pieces fall for Josh Allen and what that could mean for stats. Now, why am I skeptical about Josh Allen repeating his NFL MVP? Well, the competition's good, right? I mean, you're talking about Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Jackson, Daniels, Herbert, Hurts. Those are your most likely guys. That's a good crop, right? Those are all going to be prolific players on most likely good teams. And so you have good competition and expectations are high. People expect Josh Allen to throw for 4,000 yards and run for 700 and score 45 touchdowns. Like, that's what people expect. And so I think there has to be more to it this year, where Josh is going to have to convince voters in a new way. Last year, he had to embrace the transition and exceed the expectations of the offense and the team and do an unbelievable job of taking care of the football. Like, that was what built his resume for winning it last year. I think it's a different script this year to do it, right? It's not just going to be, well, your stats are really good and you're really valuable, because we know that, right? Those are normal things that people expect. I think Josh Allen's going to have monster stats, like big time yardage, probably pushing 5,000 total yards from scrimmage, pushing 50 touchdowns, and the Bills are going to have to win 14 or more games while keeping the turnovers down. I think Josh has to be prolific. The Bills have to be awesome, and he has to maintain the consistency that he's shown, not turning over the football. I think that's the recipe. Meanwhile, you can't have a situation where some other quarterback throws, one of those guys we just mentioned, throws for over 5,000 yards, 50 touchdowns, like, those Mahomes years from 2017, 2018, 2019, like that type of year can't happen, or else the voters will go for that. So I think that's your formula for Josh Allen this year, and I think it's an uphill climb for him to repeat as the NFL MVP. All right, coming up next, we'll talk about Sean McDermott and his possibility to be the coach of the year. And how about Maxwell Hairston, Bill's first-round pick? Could he be the defensive rookie of the year? We'll talk about that and more here on the other side of it. So, folks, be sure to stick with me. You ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just another budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. The insights, folks, they are surprising. When I first started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and I save more. And it's super convenient. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can just use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan for your long-term goals. Plus, it's super easy to collaborate. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. All right, folks, could Sean McDermott be the coach of the year? Well, the last time the Bills had the coach of the year, it was 1980, Chuck Knox. That's the only time the Bills have had the coach of the year since the AFL-NFL merger. Last year, Kevin O'Connell of the Vikings claimed this award. And when you looked at the voting odds at this time last year, he was not in the top 5. And so he came from, I guess, longer odds entering the year to win it. Your top 5 this year, Ben Johnson, your number 1 guy in terms of best odds with the Bears at plus 650. Mike Vrabel, new coach of the Patriots, plus 850. Mike McDonald with Seattle, his second season, plus 1,300. It's interesting. They won 10 games last year in his first season. Pete Carroll, new head coach of the Raiders, plus 1,400, along with Liam Cohen, new coach of the Jags, Kellen Moore, new coach of the Saints, Aaron Glenn, new coach of the Jets, Dave Canales with the Panthers at plus 1,400. Sean McDermott is plus 5,000, 26th entering the year, which is actually lower odds than he had last year. At this point, he was 21st at plus 4,000. The coaches with worse odds, Andy Reid, Nick Sirianni, John Harbaugh. So why am I skeptical that Sean McDermott will be the coach of the year? Well, this award typically goes to the coach whose team exceeds expectations or deals with a bunch of issues and still comes through as a playoff team. And expectations for the Bills are very high, right? If the Bills go 13-4 or 12-5 and win the AFC East, that's not going to move the needle, right? Like, that's not good enough for Sean McDermott to be the coach of the year when you consider there's probably going to be some coach that stepped into a bad situation and turned it around or something along those lines. That's typically where the voters gravitate towards. And it's also a regular season award, as all of these are. They're regular season awards, so remember that. And the Bills are the only team in the NFL right now that are currently favored in every game on the schedule. Expectations are high for the Bills. So if they win, like I said, 12, 13, 14 games, win the East, is it going to move the needle, or is that, hey, the Bills did what they were supposed to do? And that's why I'm skeptical. Now, why could it happen? Well, I mean, the Bills could win 14 or 15 games, be the clear best team in the league, and the record reflects that. Like, if the Bills were 15-2, had a top 5 offense, a top 5 defense, and had the best point differential in the league, that's possible, right? That's totally possible. That's not crazy to think that could happen. And if it does, that's going to give Sean McDermott one heck of a case. Now, you know, these voters, if Ben Johnson goes to the Bears and they win 11 games and look good, right? That's going to matter. If Mike Vrabel takes the Patriots from a 4-win team to a 10-win team, right? That's going to move the needle for them. If Liam Cohen gets Trevor Lawrence playing good football and the Jaguars win the AFC South, like, those are the things that are going to really affect things, because if the Bills just go and they're a dominant team, that's not going to really move the needle because of how this award typically goes. So either the Bills are like the most dominant team in the NFL, or something terrible happens, like Josh Allen gets hurt and the Bills still win 10 or 11 games. Like, that's the type of thing that'll have to happen for Sean McDermott. All right, let's talk about Offensive Rookie of the Year. This will be a quick conversation. The last Bills player to win Offensive Rookie of the Year was Dennis Shaw in 1970. That's it. That's the only time it's ever happened. Jaden Daniels, quarterback of the Commanders, won it last year. He was second in odds, second highest odds at this point last year. Your top 5 right now, Ashton Genty, plus 250. By the way, all these odds come courtesy of FanDuel. Cam Ward at plus 380, number 1 pick. Travis Hunter of the Jaguars, plus 900. Tet McMillan, top 10 pick of the Panthers, plus 1,000. Tyler Shuck, probably going to be the Saints starting quarterback as a rookie, second-round pick. He's at plus 1,200. The only Bill that you can find to vote for on FanDuel for Offensive Rookie of the Year is Jackson Hawes, the Bills tight end that they picked, 173 in the 5th round. He's 68th on the list of highest odds at plus 25,000. Why could I see Jackson Hawes winning Offensive Rookie of the Year? I don't see a path. I really don't. And I'm skeptical because, well, he's the first Bills offensive selection, and it came at number 173 overall. The Bills will not have the Offensive Rookie of the Year this year in the NFL, or have anyone that comes close. I can't even imagine the path. Like, Jackson Hawes would have to, push for 1,000 yards, double-digit touchdowns, and that's just not likely. Defensive Rookie of the Year, we have a lot more to talk about. The last Bills players to win this, Shane Conlon in 1987, Jim Haslett in 1979. Jared Verse of the Rams won this award last year. He had the third best odds last year at this point. Your number one player right now is Abdul Carter at plus 250. He's with the Giants. Jalen Walker of the Falcons at plus 700. Michael Williams of the 49ers at plus 1,000, in addition to Travis Hunter of the Jaguars plus 1,000. Then you have Shamar Stewart and Mason Graham at plus 1,200. Maxwell Hairston is 14th in terms of odds right now, plus 3,000. Then it's Landon Jackson at plus 10,000, 36th. And TJ Sanders is plus 15,000, and he is 40th right now in terms of odds. So why could this happen? Well, it's not crazy to think that Maxwell Hairston could be your defensive rookie of the year. He's got ball skills, right? And that's what's really going to matter. Your ability to create takeaways. You know, if he can go out and have 5, 6, 7 interceptions, that's going to be very impressive, right? And something that would help his cause. And he's got that aggressive demeanor. He's got that ability to hunt the football that gets you excited for where those interception totals could be. And I could see them being very strong as even a rookie. And we know that he's going to be tested, right? Like the Bills have Christian Benford on one side. They have Taron Johnson in the slot. He's going to have some opportunities where teams are going to go after him. And that's just going to be the reality of it. You're a rookie corner and there's a good one playing opposite of you. They're going to test you. And if he is able to meet the moment, really limit production against him, take away the football, make some splash plays, this could be a guy that's in the conversation. And I also think that there's something to get into about how not only would his individual metrics be very strong, but the story to tell about him as a guy that elevates this pass defense, which struggled mightily in 2024. We're talking about a Bills pass defense that was 24th in yards per game, 24th in touchdowns allowed, 17th in net yards per attempt, 23rd in EPA per play, and 28th in average separation per target. I mean, Maxwell Hairston comes in and has a good year individually in terms of splash plays, and the Bills pass defense goes from, bottom 10 of the league to top 10, and Hairston's like the only new starter. That's going to go a long way in that conversation. Now, why am I skeptical of this? Well, only 3 corners have won the award in the last 25 years, and it typically goes to like defensive linemen. And of course, we know that this was a heavy defensive line draft. Look at last year. I think it's a good example of what a corner versus a defensive lineman could lead to in terms of the voting, where Jared Verse won this award comfortably. And number 2 was Quinyon Mitchell, who had a great season. Now, Jared Verse, he only had 4.5 sacks. That was, he had a great season, a lot of pressure, 11 tackles for loss, defensive touchdown he scored, but he only had 4.5 sacks. Now, Quinyon Mitchell didn't help himself because he didn't have any interception. He did have 11 pass breakups, but you could see how they go towards the defensive lineman. They always have. That's where the voting has always went towards. So that's what makes me skeptical. Now, does that mean that Landon Jackson or TJ Sanders could be part of the mix? Well, we'll see. I think TJ Sanders will get more snaps, but will he get enough run and production to really make noise in this race? Maybe. There's a lot of defensive linemen that got drafted in this draft, a lot of defensive linemen that got drafted earlier in this draft. And I think that it's something to consider, like, will they get the volume of snaps in Buffalo that maybe some of these other guys are going to get? So we will see how that all unfolds. Let's talk quickly about comeback player of the year. The Bills won this award in 1998. Doug Flutie was your comeback player of the year. Joe Burrow won the award last year. He had the second best odds to do it at this time last year. Aaron Rodgers actually had better odds than Joe Burrow. Currently, right now, the voting is Dak Prescott at plus 270. He's the number one guy in terms of best odds. Then you have Aiden Hutchinson at plus 300, Christian McCaffrey at plus 370, Trevor Lawrence at plus 430, and J.J. McCarthy at plus 850. Really, the only guy I can see for the Bills winning this award is Matt Milano, and Matt Milano wasn't even listed in the on FanDuel. You had Dre Greenlaw, you had Jermaine Johnson, defensive players. Jair Alexander, Javon Hargrave, Alex Anzalone, DeMarvion Overshown, no Matt Milano, which quite honestly surprised me a little bit. Not that I think Matt Milano is going to win this award or even come close, but to have odds available for those guys, Alex Anzalone, DeMarvion Overshown over Matt Milano, who has like been one of the best linebackers in the NFL before, kind of surprised me. So why could it happen? Well, Matt Milano can certainly produce splash plays. We know that. If he's on his game, that guy can make big plays. Plus, he's highly motivated. You know, this is a situation where Matt Milano took a pay cut, and as part of the reason he did that, it was so that he could get to the end of his contract quicker. It voided the last year of his deal. And it's not like Matt Milano is a million years old. He turns 31 in July. And there is a strong history of linebackers in the NFL that are playing good football well into their 30s. Thinking about guys like Levante David, who just turned 35 in January. Bobby Wagner just turned 30 or is about to turn 35 in June. Eric Kendricks, 33 years old. Demario Davis with the Saints, 36 years old. So there are impact linebackers in the league playing into their mid to late 30s. And Matt Milano is going to turn 31 in July. And so if he goes out and has a big year, not only is that going to be huge for him to get another sizable contract, but to be relevant in this conversation for comeback player of the year, especially when you're talking about 2 years in a row of significant injuries, a tibial plateau fracture into a bicep tear. You know, he got a little bit of run late in the season last year, but I think that he's at least worth talking about. And of course, I'm very skeptical. I mean, you're talking about Dak Prescott, Aiden Hutchinson, Christian McCaffrey as, you know, one of those three guys is going to have a good year and probably win the award. So I don't think Matt Milano's a true contender here, but I think that he deserves a little bit more credit than maybe where the betting odds have him at this point in time. All right, coming up on the other side of it, I want to talk about Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, and the new Protector of the Year award. Folks, be sure to stick with me. All right, welcome back. Let's talk Offensive Player of the Year. The Bills last had the Offensive Player of the Year in 1991. Thurman Thomas. 1973, O.J. Simpson won this award. Last year it was Saquon Barkley, who was actually not even ranked in the top 5 last year at this point in terms of best odds. He is number 1 entering 2025 at plus 550. Then you have Jamar Chase at plus 900, Jahmyr Gibbs at plus 1200, Justin Jefferson, Derrick Henry, Nico Collins, all at plus 1,400. Now, the Bills have some names that are possibilities. Josh Allen is plus 5,000. He's at 19th. James Cook is plus 7,500. Khalil Shakir is plus 20,000. Keon Coleman is plus 25,000. And Dalton Kincaid is plus 30,000. So you're really talking about Josh Allen and James Cook as your contenders here. And Josh Allen, it could happen because Josh Allen could have crazy stats and then maybe not be the NFL MVP. And they'd be like the consolation where the MVP goes to one quarterback and then Offensive Player of the Year goes to Josh Allen. You could see something like that happening. And for James Cook, I think it could happen because the workload could be pretty significant. You know, it's unlikely to me that we'll see a contract extension done before the season, which is going to put James Cook front and center for a lot of volume to either validate himself in Buffalo, validate himself to other teams, get that $15 million a year that he's looking for. And I think a part of that equation for James Cook to get the contract that he's seeking is handling a lot of volume and, of course, that turning into a lot of production. And so I think that's your pathway to it happening. I don't think that the Bills will have a pass catcher, Shakir, Coleman, Kincaid, one of those guys that will get enough volume that's going to have them outproducing, you know, the Jamar Chases, the Justin Jeffersons, or like even what that would mean for the rushing production of a Barkley or a Henry type situation. So why am I skeptical of the award going to a Bills player? Again, kind of centering this around Josh Allen and James Cook. Josh Allen, this reason I'm skeptical there is that this has really become a non-quarterback award. A running back or a receiver has won it the last 6 years. And I think that's kind of the trend where the NFL MVP is basically the quarterback award, and then the Offensive Player of the Year has become the running back or wide receiver award. And then for James Cook, this guy last year was second in the NFL with 18 touchdowns, and he didn't get a vote last year. Not a single vote. So what is James Cook's formula? He's going to have to push for like 1,700 yards. He's going to have to be well into 2,000 yards from scrimmage and probably 20 touchdowns. And that's basically what Jahmyr Gibbs had last year, and that wasn't good enough to win the award. So it's very, very competitive, and I just don't know that the Bills will ultimately have the guy that puts up the offensive numbers that's going to win this award. Defensive Player of the Year, the Bills last had that in 96, Bruce Smith. 95, Bryce Pomp won it, and 1990, Bruce Smith won it as well. Last year, Patrick Surtain, corner from the Broncos, won this award, who was not in the top 5 in terms of highest odds at this point last year. Number 1 guy is Micah Parsons with the Cowboys at plus 650. Myles Garrett is plus 700 at number 2. Aiden Hutchinson and TJ Watt tied for number 3 at plus 900. And then Max Crosby is number 5 at plus 1,200. Here's where the Bills players land on FanDuel. Ed Oliver is plus 10,000 in addition to Greg Rousseau. They're 26th. Then you have Joey Bosa at plus 25,000. He's 86th. Then it's Terrell Bernard at plus 30,000. Matt Milano, AJ Epinesa, Christian Benford, and DeMar Hamlin at plus 40,000. Might not be bad to put a couple bucks on Christian Benford at plus 40,000, right? That's not crazy to me. So why could it happen? Well, I think the Bills' defense will be better this year. You don't have a rookie coordinator anymore. I think you've elevated the coaching staff in general defensively, and you've certainly added to this defense. I mean, this D-line and this corner room has been infused with veterans and young talent. It's undeniable. And so I think that's going to lead to a better defense, which should lead to better production from individual players, right? That's your path. Is this defense is better. You've added young, meaningful talent. You've added veteran, meaningful talent, and somebody through that emerges, right? Now, there's some household names that they'll have to beat out, but that kind of happened. You think about Zach Bond last year with the Eagles. He went there and had a big year, and he finished, third in voting. So I think that's part of what makes this a helpful conversation for the Bills. And I'm not sleeping on Christian Benford. I want to go back to that one for a second. I mean, he's plus 40,000. That's crazy. I've said it before. Christian Benford has been every bit of a top 5 corner in the NFL the last 2 years. And the improvements that I talked about defensively should benefit him tremendously. And if he can snare 6, 7, 8 interceptions, really limit the production allowed against him, which he's done for 2 years in a row, like metrically unbelievable. He's a guy that can force some fumbles. He can make those splashy plays. I mean, I would actually argue that Benford's the guy on this team that I think has the best odds to be the defensive player of the year based on the, what's on the Bills right now. Not Ed Oliver and Greg Rousseau, who currently, according to FanDuel, have the best odds, and then Joey Bosa at number 3. So why am I skeptical? Well, I think Benford's the best option, and only 2 corners have won the award in the last 15 years. So there's that piece of it. And typically this award goes to defensive linemen. And so not only do you need Christian Benford to have a better year than these big name defensive linemen, but if it's going to be one of your defensive linemen, they're going to have to match the production of the big names like a Myles Garrett, a TJ Watt, a Micah Parsons, a Max Crosby. That could be a difficult recipe given how much the Bills rotate up front. And then you might think about Joey Bosa, right? He's been a premier defensive player in the league for a while. Even in his prime, he never received a vote. So I think the Bills have an uphill climb, although I am not sleeping on Benford as a guy that should have a little bit more respect when it comes to odds at this point in time. Let's finish up by talking about the Protector of the Year, a new award brought about by Bills offensive lineman Dion Dawkins. I understand Andrew Whitworth had a role in this, but Dawkins has been kind of vocal about this, and it happened. And it's been cool to see him on the media circuit talking about how this happened. He was on McAfee. He was on Rich Eisen. And it's really cool that, forever, Dion Dawkins' legacy will be attached to not only the player that he's been for the Bills, high-level performer, but a guy that brought this award forward. That's going to be a staple for offensive line, moving forward. I think it's incredible. And so it's really cool how this is going to be selected. And I speculated on Bill's squad with Jeremy and Jerry last week about, I'm worried that if they just have the typical voters vote for this, that they don't understand the position well enough, to be honest with you, to vote on it. And it won't be them. It's going to be a panel of former standout offensive linemen that will select the winner. We know right now that the panel includes Jason Kelsey, Andrew Whitworth, Charles Bentley, Will Shields, and Sean O'Hara. So I don't know if it's more than that, but we know that it includes them. And the criteria will be used for voting will include pass block win rate, run block win rate, sacks allowed. They'll consider the impact or contributions to the team's offensive success, leadership, durability, number of snaps and games played, strength of opponent, how they performed against top-performing defenders. So pretty cool that they've really thought this through to figure out the best way to come up with this award. And, the Bills certainly have contenders. They have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. It's metrically outstanding in terms of limiting sacks and limiting negative runs. So I think Dion Dawkins, Spencer Brown, Connor McGovern, they are firmly in this conversation. And there's no odds right now that you can look at FanDuel to, say where they stand. But, I think that the Bills will have some guys that can enter the chat, if you will, when it comes to protector of the year, something I'm pretty excited to see come about, and even more excited now that I've learned about how the award will be voted on. So there you have it, folks. Went through all the major NFL awards, talked about where the Bills fall into those conversations, and some more than others, but I think Maxwell Hairston's one to watch for D-Roy, Josh Allen, of course, for the NFL MVP, and then, we'll see who can make noise elsewhere, including protector of the year. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us here today on the podcast. Thank you for being here. As always, I kindly ask that you share, subscribe, rate, and review. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills, and I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.